Welcome to the Planet Rock Podcast, the hottest show in the cosmos. Get ready for insight and inspiration right here on Planet Rock with your special guest, Matthew Jeanius, and your cosmic guide through our ever-changing space and time. I'm your host, Raquel Herring. Welcome to the Planet Rock Podcast, the hottest show in the cosmos. I'm Raquel Herring, your cosmic guide on this wild ride called life. Join us every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for powerful stories and insights that delve into all things relationships and personal growth. Tune in on envision-radio.com and catch our replays, premiering on Saturday on YouTube. Connect with us on social media and at raquelherring.com. Let's elevate your life one episode at a time right here on Planet Rock, where every moment is a step towards your personal victory. And this season, give the gift of inspiration and transformation with my book, Falling Up, The Unstoppable Journey of a Tear. It's more than a story. It's a guide to overcoming life's challenges, finding your purpose, and becoming unstoppable. Whether for yourself or someone you care about, Falling Up is the perfect way to spread hope, resilience, and joy this season. Ready to unwrap a journey of personal growth? Well, grab your copy today at raquelherring.com. I'll sign it and I'll get it back to you and make this a season to remember. Today, we're tackling real relationship dilemmas and uncovering powerful solutions with the incredible Matthew Jeanius, a licensed marriage and family therapist. Whether you're struggling with your love languages, boundaries, or healing from relationship trauma, this episode is for you. Matt Jeanius is not only a therapist, but a visionary in the mental health community, specializing in family dynamics and Black male wellness. His work transforms lives, and we're thrilled to have him here. We'll dive into men's vulnerabilities, transitions in traditional roles, and even dissect a real life relationship story for some actionable advice if we have time. I hope we do. So let's get right down to it. Matt, welcome to the show. Once again, we're so grateful to have you.
I'm always happy to be here. Raquel, you rock. Thank you for having me again. Let's go.
Yeah, first tell people where they can reach you.
Of course, please. And I love the fact that you're doing this at the beginning because sometimes we don't get to it at the end. So please, if you would like to reach out, contact me, send me a question, comment, some feedback on all platforms. MatJeanius, Matt Jeanius, on IG, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, on all of them is Matt Jeanius. You can also reach me via phone, via text or call. My number is 754-300-6127. This is a business line, so let's keep it business on that call, on that line. They can also email me at mattjeanius, full MatJeanius at beachstonecounseling.com. Thank you. Can't wait to hear from you guys.
Awesome. So now we're ready to rock and roll into this men's vulnerabilities and the evolving role of men.
Yes.
Okay. So men have vulnerabilities and they're rarely discussed, but they're crucial to healthy relationships.
Yes.
How do societal expectations shape men's ability to open up emotionally? I have one more. Let's explore the transitions of men from being sole providers to seeking balanced relationships.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So here are my questions for you, Matt. I'm getting there. Why do some men struggle with being vulnerable in relationships?
This is a great topic. I think this should be discussed year round because we need more spaces where we can actually talk about the variety of men that there are. No two men is created equally, right? And so That doesn't mean that we're less than. It just means that certain men are different when it comes to the emotions they display or would like to display. But all of us as men have complex emotional and mental things that are going on internally that we may or may not have safe spaces to then let those things out. And so a part of what shapes a man to then show up this way is, of course, their home of origin. You also have the greater society that they grew up in. And then you also have media. You also have a lot of things that influence men to believe that they only can show up one way. And that's hyper masculine, like the machismo in the Latin culture.
Yeah.
The very, strong head of the household, and a lot of the, African American, African cultures, African cultures of African descent is very big that way, because these are some of the things that culturally we've seen and we've experienced in our households and our communities to then shape us to believe that we have to show up one way, very rigid, showing less emotions, being very, hot or cold, and none of the in between, where you can really parse out what is truly going on in a man's heart and what's truly going on in a man's mind and what's truly going on in that man's spirit. And so because we don't have, oftentimes, we don't have the spaces to then explore or the opportunity to receive a variety of different ways a man can show up in this world when it comes to their mental and emotional processes, a lot of men suppress them. And they are ended up projected out externally in different ways. And some of those ways may be healthy. Some of those ways may be toxic. Some of those ways may be normal. But I think what we have to do, and what we're doing in this conversation, is making space to understand that men are a plethora, meaning we come in a variety of shapes and sizes and emotional and mental understandings. And so make space for us. And the more you make space for us, the less it will create dissension in your heart to then see a man in a different light that may not be what you're used to seeing or you're used to interacting with. And so the more we make space, the safer men can be to then show up in a variety of ways when it comes to their mental, emotional, and even spiritual stances.
That's good. So how can women create safe spaces for their men to open up?
I think a part of that is being okay with what your desires are, and locking that in, meaning what you desires you. And sometimes we feel as if we have to take on something that we don't fully desire, that really don't fully desire us, to then have to shape this person into something else. And that's a lot of work for both people to do. And it's not saying that there's going to be this, perfect match. What I'm saying is that the work that is to be done isn't as strenuous when you find somebody who values themselves and values you at that same rate. Meaning the change that I want for myself, you want them for me. So we're on the same page, and moving forward, we can create those changes. The changes you desire for you, I desire for you, so I can support you in your endeavors of moving along and getting to those changes. I think what we try to do sometimes, which often backfires, is that we force our hand to then make a person believe that they have to be a specific way for us. And that may not be what that person desires to be. And so there's resentment, there's tension, there's conflict, because we're not on the same page and we're not speaking the same language. We may not even be in the same reality, right? I love these questions that come up in relationships. I write them out as just acronyms. I just use the first letter of each word. And one of my favorite is, who you think you're talking to? Right? Who you think you're talking to like that? Or I know you're not talking to me.
Right.
Like that, right? And these things come up because we find ourselves in two separate realities where we can't believe the person that we're in a relationship with is interacting with us in a way that doesn't make sense for the desires of our heart. And so to avoid those things, understand what it is your true desires are. Understand what your wants are, what your needs are when it comes to your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your financial, all these different areas of intimacy, to then have an understanding for yourself and then be those things for you. so that as you become the things that you most desire, it will be easy for you to spot the genuine versus the counterfeit. You know what you know versus you providing those things for you. If the counterfeit comes, it's entertaining, but it's not what you really desire. Right? I see you. You're doing a good job pretending, but I know this is not what I need for myself, for my heart, for my mind, for my spirit.
That is interesting. How do we hone that down? How to know exactly what you desire? I mean, we can kind of like just talk it and be like, okay, well, this is what I desire, but how do we really hone it down? Because I mean, he may not check all the boxes, or she may not check all the boxes.
Correct.
But how do we determine what, like, we don't want to choose like finances over love, but you know, finances are necessary. We don't want to choose a certain, like, having a luxury lifestyle and leave out love altogether, because that can totally happen, and it has happened. If they can't come together, how do you choose? How do you figure that out?
Well, I think a part of it is that resting in the assurance that God has your back, like you are God's favorite, and I like to use the example that the Bible provides when saying that, be childlike, right? And the resemblance of the father and the child interaction, and as a father, there's a scripture that says there is no good gifts that the father withhold from his child, right? And so when you think about that, that means everything that your heart desires can be yours. I think sometimes we're impatient in the knowing of our own self, right? We don't know ourselves fully before we can offer that self up to someone else and then falsely relate to that person based on where they are versus what we truly know and understand about what God has put in us to desire, to have a more, attraction towards. And when we're patient, we pray to God, but do we listen? Do we have enough patience to then listen to what God is speaking to us to say, I hear you, my child, and what your heart is desiring, I have the equivalent for that waiting for you, right? This world is about balance. So what your heart desires, there's a balance externally for that exact specific thing. I think when we align, when we trust, when we believe, when we show our faith in exercising that same love that we want from others to ourselves, it will be easily had. Now, let me get practical, because I know all of this is floof, right? Let's get practical. Sometimes you have to measure what it is that your heart really desires. How do you know that? You ask a question about intimacy as far as where we relate. And when I define intimacy, I don't want to lead people on with any false understanding, because we may have the same word, 2 different definitions, 3 different definitions. When I say intimacy, I'm referring to the bridges of connections that we each have in every relationship that makes us want to return to that specific relationship. So these are bridges of connection. And those bridges are mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, social, relational, and so much more according to that individual person. If we understand what level I want to exchange and receive mentally, then I won't compromise in that named relationship. If I know that mentally, in my friendships, I want to exchange at this level of mental intimacy, but the person is going over, then I have to create a boundary to inform that person that in this relationship, what I desire is at this level. It's not saying that we don't have a great relationship. It's saying that this relationship has specific confines that will allow us to relate to each other in a healthy way based on my capacity and based on your capacity. And let's grow that a little bit. If we are in a friendship and someone desires more in an area, specifically mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, they're saying that they want to graduate from the friendship and move on to a higher level of a relationship. So I like how we relate to each other. I like how we're intimate in these areas. I'm asking, can we graduate and move higher, right? And if it is reciprocal, and if there is a desire to move forward, then congratulations, you are moving from a friendship to possibly dating. And congratulations, you're probably moving from dating to engaged. Congratulations, you're probably moving from engaged to being married. And all of them are beautiful, but it works the same way. If the friendship isn't going well, congratulations. You just revealed to me that I have to move us back to being acquaintance. Congratulations. We were dating before. Now we're moving back to friendship based on me having an understanding of what my desires and capacity are to give and to receive, based on you understanding what your capacities are to give and receive. Then you'll be open to exchange that in a healthy way in that named relationship, meaning acquaintances have a specific level, friends have a specific level, those who I'm dating have a specific level, my family members have a specific level according to my capacity. This is not me bending to the will of where others are. This is me being honest and authentic with what I have the capacity to receive and to give, right?
Yes.
You heard this before, right? You've heard this before. If you felt this before in relationships where people would say, and they'd pour out their minds and their hearts to you, and you would say to them, or they'd say to you, too much information, right? I don't, this is not where our relationship is. You're providing me with the context that I'm not ready for because we're not at that level of exchange in our intimate connections.
That's a lot.
That was a great question. So I had to make sure I parsed it out so people could understand. These are things that I do trainings on, and so I help the young, couple, the young person or the older person fully understand where their heart is, what we've learned how to do. And this is me being vulnerable with myself. The first time I started dating, I was like, what was the purpose? What do I do now? I don't know how to then show up in this person's life. I'm just going to like this person because they like me.
Yeah.
That's it, right? But
Right.
there's so many more nuances that we're missing out of to then grow our quality of experience in each relationship. Imagine knowing exactly what you desire in a friendship and that partner understanding that and being accountable to it, being open to then exchange at that rate. It feels like the perfect setting for you to then have a great time. And we already do that without our knowledge or consent. There are specific environments you walk into, you're like, oh, listen, the vibe is great. This person must have knew I was coming because everything that is happening in this space is according to what my heart's desire, the vibration, the frequency of where we are, the atmosphere is what they say in the church is already set for me to have a great time. We can experience that in almost all of our relationships where we can then slow down and say, listen, this is where I am, right? And this is where I would like to relate to you. If you are willing to work with that, we can move forward. But if you're not willing, that's okay too, because it's not my job to then make you become ready for where I am. It's just revealing to me that we're not on the level that I thought we were. And we can now understand that our relationship is at a different level.
What does it mean for men to embrace new relationships, new roles in relationships without feeling emasculated?
Yeah, I love this. I love this one because remember, wherever we are, there's an equal match on the outside of it. I think what we do is we judge because we're not that equal for the person that we're seeing. And so we minimize where that person is, right? And it's the same thing that we've done with a lot of women. We say women shouldn't want to be provided for. It's 50-50. Listen, do you, sis, right? Do you? Because what your heart's desire, there is a man that is willing to provide exactly what it is. I think what we do is we shun people because we think they're on the extreme end. The extreme end also have an extreme opposite to where the opposite will then provide the space where they both can meet each other and have a healthy relationship. That's not my business. My business is to mind minds and to make sure I understand what my heart's desires are and then show up in the people's lives where their desires are as well, right? And so for the men, listen, this may not be popular, but for the men who are desiring to be taken care of, to be pampered, to sit at home and play video games, there is a woman that's willing to go out and work to make sure this man can then live the life that he wants. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that it's out there. So if that's where you are, be content and thank the Lord that there is an equivalent outside of you to then provide that space where you can be and express yourself in that way, right?
Mhm.
No men are, listen, we're not created the same. We're created, but we decide the pathway that we'll go on to
Mhm.
become the version of us that we truly desire to become. And if that
Mhm.
person wants to then stay at home and eat, and play games, hey, listen, do you, brother, as long as you can find that equivalent and not force that person's hand.
So this is how I translate it.
Okay.
You need to know who you are, what
Right.
you want, what's your
Right.
needs, and you find someone that is in agreement with that.
Right. I think you will find each other. Right. I think
Okay.
it will be easier for you to then understand what the authentic match is versus what the inauthentic match is, and not,
Mm.
have to then compromise and then result in having conflict in a relationship where you feel like you're having bias remorse, and so
Yeah.
so so be honest with yourself. And so for the men that are non-traditionally different now, kudos to you. Do you, but
Yeah.
don't allow other people to influence you to be something else, because then there will be resentment in the relationship. And so be authentic and know that the match is out there for you. Be
Mm.
patient and trust God.
That's good. That's good. Wow. Every time you say something, I feel like I need time to digest that and process it. But I get that. You find each other
Yeah,
and be patient to find that person.
yeah, yeah.
Love languages.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about these love languages. And like I know a person who says their love language is to be in service and
Hmm.
physical touch,
Right, right. Yeah,
and they asked me mine. I was like, "Pfft, I don't have no clue. What are we even
yeah,
talking about? So
yeah,
love languages are the blueprint I'm becoming to understand, to understanding our partner's needs. When does compromise become a healthy bridge, and when does it lead to losing yourself?
yeah.
Questions for you, Matt.
I
That
got it.
that
And
that
I
was
think
one.
I think we're always compromising.
Mhm.
And compromise is not a bad thing. I think we put a stain on what compromising is, because it makes us feel like we're giving up ourselves when we can look at it in a way of evolving ourselves.
Mm.
As a parent, I have to become something different every single time for my kids, because they are not me. And so I have to tend to their wants, needs, and desires. And I'm in love with the growth that is happening in me as a result of them being in my life. Right.
Mhm.
And so is
Yes.
it a compromise? Of course. But is it beneficial? Yes. So compromise isn't bad. I think we have to understand what points that we're willing to work through and grow for our benefit, and
Mhm.
what points that if we make those changes are for our detriment. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so
Mhm.
when then right? And that takes you being authentically present in your mind, being mindful of your thoughts, being mindful of your emotions, even your physical sensations.
Mm.
You can be around a person and feel, the disdain inside of you based on your heart rate elevating, your blood flow escalating. You're like, man, I don't want to be around this person. And yet we force ourselves to be in settings and situations where it may not be healthy for us. We compromise our own understanding based on trying to make another person comfortable. And
Yeah.
so understand compromise is always necessary, but it may not be for our benefit. So choose based on your own knowledge of yourself, And then when it comes to those love language was developed by a couple named the Gottmans, Dr. Gottman and his wife did a vast study over the years where they, research couples. They've been working with couples for over, I think, 40 to 50 years, right?
Wow.
And so they came up with this concept. They wrote a book years ago called The Five Love Languages. And these five love languages show up in our lives in different ways, right? So
Okay.
we just can't hear this and think that it's just that, because there's cultural, right? There's personality, right? is spirituality that then intertwines with these love languages that allow it to be different per person. So I'll tell you what they are, but make them make sense for you. Don't make them universal. Make it make sense for you. So 5 love languages are words of affirmation, right? Words of affirmation simply means saying, I love you, right? Saying, I care about you. I see you. I appreciate you. You know,
Yeah.
wow, you're doing such a great job. You're affirming that person in their identity, in their minds, in their hearts, in their body. You're letting that person know your understanding of where they are by complimenting them and by elevating them through your words, right?
Okay.
Acts of service. Acts of service meaning, how can I do a thing to make you feel that I love you, right? What can I do? How can I show up with my physical body, you know, with the things that I do to then show? Don't talk about it, be about it, is what some people say, right? Right? I don't want you to talk about it, I want you to be about it. So if you're not going to be about it, then, you know, so, and then of course there's the expression, actions speak louder than words. Acts of service is what we do then, right? You say you love me all the time, but what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately?
Right.
Right? So we want to know, right? And some people, that means more to them than anything else, you know? And then there are, you know, people who are into receiving gifts, right? I love giving gifts, but I also love receiving them, you know? And by the way, a side note of how you understand your love language, look at how you communicate love the most. Do you compliment people? Do you serve people? Do you give gifts, right? The other one is quality time. Do you love spending quality time with each other? Or are you into physical touch? And physical touch isn't just sexual. It's more of rubbing the shoulder, giving a hug, spinning next to each other, cuddling and nuzzling, you know, and holding hands while you're walking. PDA, public displays of affection, you know. All of these things are then, you know, synonymous to physical touch. So the 5 are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Those are the 5 love languages that he came up with. Now, be clever. If none of those make sense for you, right? What is the way that love is spoken to you, and how do you speak love? Right? How does love show up in what you do for others, and how would you like love to show up in your life? If you understand that, then you communicate. We are always communicating love, either the abundance of it or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be one or the other, you know, by the way we interact with each other. We're either speaking about the abundance or the lack thereof. So how do we communicate love? Ask yourself, how would you like to be shown? Is, you know, somebody can tell you, oh, Raquel, I love you so much, right? And what could that person then, in their interaction with you, show up to then express that love for you, right? And that's how you know.
That's how you identify it.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, I had no clue about this love language stuff. I was like, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The book is amazing. And by the way, there is a quiz on their website, the Gottman website. I think you put in the Gottman or the 5 love language, and there's a quiz that will help you determine what's your love language according to the 5. Remember, not all of us speak the same language, so your love language may be slightly different. But if you want to know or get familiar with Gottman's 5 love languages, then you can go to their website, you can take the quiz, and it will help you understand that even better.
Okay, good. I'm going to take it. What's the key to balancing compromise without resentment?
Yes. You know, I think we have to slow it down. You know, I think sometimes we're moving at a pace where our expectations are higher than the capacity of our partner. Okay. And so what we have to learn is understanding capacity and setting realistic expectations so that we won't get ahead of where that person is in our expectations, you know. So when it comes to compromise is a part of creating healthy expectations. Because if you, message me and say, Matt, I need you to come on at 12 o'clock. And I was like, you know what? I can't do 12. I can only do 12:30. And you was like, great, 12:30 it is. But you show up at 12 and expect me to be there at 12, right? Then the expectation that was set by you wasn't what I compromised based on what my capacity is. So sometimes we have to be able to be flexible and where that person is versus where we are and what our desires are.
Yeah.
But sometimes we may have to be honest with ourselves to say, you know what, I desire more. And if that's not what your desires are basically being fulfilled at that rate, then you have to make a decision whether or not you would like to continue in the interaction, in the exchange, in the relationship, or you'd like to create a new boundary, or you'd like to, end the relationship completely. It's all up to you. I think what we do is we don't create the spaces where we can be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I desire more. Come on, Matt. I need you to be here at 12, man. Be here at 12, Matt. And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna work it through. I'm gonna be here, right? Right. This is an example, but this happens all the time where we're not communicating what our hearts really desire.
Yeah.
And sometimes it never gets filled because we're not being authentic. So create a space. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? That means create an environment where you can talk about what your heart's true desires are. Create an environment where you can feel safe enough to be vulnerable enough to talk about your hurts, your disappointment, your anger even, right? When it comes to resentment, and then isolation, it leads to depression. Now you're talking about the relationship being severed. If you get into the space of resentment, I mean, something is not being communicated effectively to where it's being received or where it's being given in a way that then creates change, So we have to be honest with ourselves. Do you understand, so I go through a lot of these things with my clients, the couples that I work with, where they have to then have a list of things before they get to the realistic expectation. First, is it communicated? Is it understood, right? If it's understood, is there a compromise based on capacity, right? Check on the capacity. You heard me, you understood me. Do you have the capacity? If the capacity is or is not there, how do we then bring in the compromise, right? And then after we have the compromise, then we can set the expectation. It's not over yet. Then we have to create accountability so that when the expectation is not met, the emotions that follow are then parallel to the expectation that was made, right? Meaning, if I am angry or if I am disappointed, then I'm disappointed because I did communicate, because you did tell me you understand, because you did tell me you had the capacity. So now my emotions are valid in how I'm expressing them. And it is our job when we create an expectation that's unmet to then validate that other person's emotions by saying, you know what, I did say that, and I didn't meet that. I'm sorry, I need to do better. Can we reset to create a different expectation that's within my capacity so we won't have to get to the point of being disappointed, of being hurt, or being angry, to the point of resentment? Because remember, resentment is where we're not even, that's where I don't even want to talk to you. But if it's hurt, if it's anger, even if it's disappointment, we can still talk through the hurt. We can still communicate our anger in an effective way. We can still talk about the disappointment that we receive to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I hear you say the things you say. And some therapists, they say these things, but then when you hear about their lives or something, it's in disarray. You're like, how are they telling people this stuff? But I love it that you say these things, but your life is living it as well. I mean, you have this beautiful, large family.
Right.
We talked about, you and your wife, your relationship, even like from birthing children in your own home. I mean, that's incredible relationship,
Right.
And I love that about you, because I don't think we get to hear that a lot from therapists, to really see that what they're saying is also active in their own lives.
Yes, we make a space to where we understand that each other will never show up perfect, whatever that means. That means I may have days where everything that I say isn't necessarily how I show up based on where I am mentally, based on what is happening externally, based on what is happening internally.
Yes.
For example, I was physically injured early this year. I had a small accident in the home, and I wasn't okay. And so the expectations then have to be different, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm not there, it doesn't mean that I love my family less. It doesn't mean that I love my wife less. It just means that I may need time to get back to my healthy self. And we have learned We have evolved. We have compromised to then make the space available for that person, whether it's myself, my wife, or my kids, to then get back to that space. Do we do it perfectly? No. Of course we make mistakes, but what we've learned is how to then cultivate that atmosphere that will allow a person to feel vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I'm wrong. You know what, I made a mistake. You know what, I'm sorry. You know what, I am tired. You know what, I'm grieving. You know what, I feel shame. You know what, I feel guilt. And not judge that person according to where they are, because we believe that where that person is at that moment isn't where they will always be.
Yeah.
You know, and so we make space for that person, so that person, if it's myself, my wife, or my kids, to then get back to that healthy self that we know they can be. So yes, I do practice what I preach.
Yeah.
I do practice what I preach, and it shows up in our ecosystem every day to where we're being challenged to then get back to that best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because you matter. Your heart matters. Your mind matters. Your body matters. Your spirit matters. And so you have to have a knowledge of what those things are that will allow you to feel like you're in a loving relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship, if it's a romantic, if it's in a sibling, if it's a parent-child or child-parent relationship. You have to know what those words are to embody a relationship that is based on love, right? And so once you name those things, now I hold you accountable to then be the curator of an environment that can create those things, right? Mm-hmm. So if I know I want fun, if I know I want adventure, if I want intimacy, if I know I want these things, then it is my responsibility to show up in me to be the vessel of how these things are being seen in my relationship. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. That means my words have to match what I desire. I say I want a loving relationship. How do my words then reflect a loving relationship? Okay. How does my tone impact the loving relationship? How does my action impact the loving relationship? How does the context in which we live show up as a loving relationship, to where I can create the advantage that I desire by me being the curator, not waiting for my partner then to show up and be that change all end all for what I desire. So we avoid the conflict when we know enough to then create the change based on what we say. Your words have power. My words have power. So we have to choose them wisely. And then according to those words as the umbrella of the relationship, everything that falls under that should relate to what you say you desire. So don't say you desire love and you show up angry all the time. Don't say you desire fun and don't want to try anything, right? don't say you want adventure, but you're a homebody and you don't want to get out the house, right?
Right.
So what we say, we have to then show up, because what we say might be in conflict with what we actually desire or what we actually put out there. And that's the first conflict. The first conflict isn't the conflict we have with others. The first conflict is the internal conflict we have with ourselves. Yes. So if you can resolve that, if you can have some peace internally, man, that peace will then overflow outside to all your relationships, friendships, business, romantic, you name it, you know. So find that peace internally by saying what you say and meaning it, and then showing up authentically as those things that you say you desire.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's really good. So here I have a story.
Okay.
I got this story. I had the person's name, but now I have forgotten. They just left like their handle, and I've forgotten what it was. I forgot.
It's okay. Share the story. Let's share the story.
And I should have written it down. Okay. So let me get. Okay. So have you ever felt torn between love and your personal goals? Okay. I'm moving on as I get my thing here to move. Okay. So the story highlights love, ambition, and the complexities of setting boundaries. This is what I put on it. Okay. So is it possible for love to bridge differences in ambition and expectations? That's the question.
Yes. I mean, listen, I love all these questions about love because I've been a hopeless romantic forever, you know, since I could probably walk. I've been thinking about love and marriage and family, right? So this is such a beautiful question because love has no boundaries, you know, right? The Bible says God is love, and if God is love, then, perfect love casted out all fear. That's 1 John 4:8, I believe. All these things that we then become anxious about when it comes to love. And we put limitations on love as if love has limitations. God is love, and God dwells in all of us. So the limitless capacity of how love can be expressed is inside all of us. So if your desire, I'm speaking to the audience now, right? This is yes. If your desire is to have a loving relationship and a thriving career, guess what? You can still have them. Right? You can have them both. I think sometimes we feel that we have to sacrifice, and this is me speaking to myself too, because there was a belief that you can't. You have to choose. Am I going to be spiritual or financially blessed? Am I going to be financially blessed or lack the spiritual quality of a righteous person, right? Am I going to be balling, right, and not have a quality of life at home, or am I going to have the quality of life? You can have both. You can have both. What does that mean? What does that look like? It has to make sense for you. You define it. Paint that picture in your head and celebrate that your mind can fathom that. Because what we've been doing have been creating results internally as well. When we think, when we doubt, when we fear, when we forecast negativity, it impacts us in the present by creating high levels of stress, by creating high levels of cortisol in our body, by creating high levels of adrenaline. Our heart is racing. We don't have peace in our mind. We can't sleep at night. We doubt every situation. And so that's what then we receive. But if you are fixed on your understanding that God is able, right? And God wants us to have life and life more abundant. And all the promises that God, spoke to us. There's one promise that I know that was given right before Christ left to the disciples. He said, "Let not your hearts be troubled." I could just stop right there, right? Let not your hearts be troubled. Like, man, take it easy, brethren. I'm right here. But even if I go away, I'm coming back with something even greater for you. So know that wherever you are, there's always greatness to experience ahead of you, right? Whatever occurred in the past, let that past be the past. Find closure, right? Deal with the traumatic past. Find a counselor to then process it. Find healing modalities, build the coping skills so you won't have to then always live in the past to then project those negative outcomes into your future, right?
Yeah.
Get that healing for yourself and let that mind, which is also in Christ Jesus. Christ was a prophet, man. Christ was spitting facts about the future. He's like, you guys are going to do way more amazing things than I did when I was here.
Yeah.
And if we believe that, then we have to then show up in this world with that radical faith. That doesn't make sense for everybody else. Not everybody was a fan of my wife and I having kids at home. Not everyone believed that we could do it. Not everybody believed that these hands could deliver babies. But I did, right?
You did.
I did it, and they're healthy. They're thriving. So the love that you desire, the life that you desire is yours according to your faith. So see it in your mind, celebrate it in your mind, and let that permeate through your mental, through your emotional, through your spiritual. And before you know it, you're there in no time.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Here, okay, so I'm going to read the story. I've tried to sum it up here. And I know I asked the question and stuff before.
All right.
Trying something new here. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so it's a woman in her 50s. She's navigating a relationship with a man 13 years older. Despite their love, conflicts over ambition, lifestyle, and boundaries have created challenges. After a fight about her close friend, who's a male best friend, that is what it seems the issue was about. Their relationship hit a breaking point. Now she's questioning if they're truly compatible. Does it make sense? Is this the one for me? Is this the one that I should be, working with or trying to make this work with? And she says, even though, people see them out, people see them, they can see the love that's shared between them. But at this point, she doesn't know. And then that was interesting. So you got the story, but what was interesting too, when you said about the doubt, like just doubt all over the place. And that seems to be part of the issue as well. So how could this couple have handled the situation better? I mean, you get it, the best friend, the ambition, not sure, is this the place for her to be with the lifestyle she'd like to have, but the love too?
Right. This is a wonderful question. I experienced some of these questions in my cases and with my clients that I see. And I have to say this because this is an important lesson for all of us to learn, right? And that lesson is either way she decides, change is necessary, right? So if she stays, change is necessary.
Yeah.
To then create a harmonious relationship and build something that's new, that's different from what the experiences were in the past, change is necessary. But if she leaves, change will still be necessary to then create a new space for someone new. So whether you leave or whether you stay, you're still going to have to change. I think the change internally might be easier because you've already had a context and intimacy has already been exchanged in a way to where it can be felt. So start with the understanding that I have to, and I could create a space where we can have these conversations without fear of judgment, without fear of being misunderstood, of being rushed through my process. And then if that space is being made, then that's where we can create the expectations, right? What are the expectations for me now as a person that's in an intimate relationship with a man to then have a relationship with other men? Let's have that conversation and understand my expectations and where they're coming from. If that's something that you can live with, agree with, please, let's just water under the bridge. Let's just wrap it up, create new expectations, create new boundaries, and move on. But if that's not something that you can live with, that's okay too. It doesn't mean that this person is a bad person. I don't hear any ill in any of the relationship. Remember, whatever your heart's desires are, there's the equivalent outside of you that's willing to provide that for you, right? As far-fetched as it is. Listen, I saw a post where people in Germany or Russia, I think, are now behaving as pets. And I'm like, do you, right? If you want to be a puppy, walk around the village with your suit, I'm not gonna, like, listen, there's somebody that's willing to own you and walk you around and do all these things. So live your life. If the extreme can be true, then we can also find space where we can create honest, authentic, romantic relationships where both of us can feel heard, feel valued exactly where we are. If you stay, change will be necessary to then create and maintain and even elevate that context. But if you leave, change will be necessary to then create something new, right? Yeah. So change is always there. Compromise is always there. It's us deciding whether it's going to be within the relationship we're in or in a new relationship that will develop.
And what role do boundaries play in maintaining trust and respect in the relationship, especially with this best friend?
Yeah, boundaries are important, right? Boundaries are an indicator of trust, of safety, right? And so my heart may not feel as safe for me to then communicate my love language to you. And if I'm not safe and that love language is not being communicated, then our relationship is already on a decline. Safety provides the context where we can be the most authentic. And what boundaries does is reinforce that safety in a way that's respectable for the relationship. So what I say or what I ask or what I desire, if you do have the capacity to fulfill those things, I feel safer, I express love easier, I receive love easier. But if I don't feel safe, I restrict my love, I withhold my love, and I reject the love that's being given to me. So which one will you decide, right? Will you decide to put up a boundary to be more open in the relationship to receive? Or you will decide to not put up the boundary and then see the decline in you and your partner exchange being diminished by the fact that they don't feel safe. And so create some safety, Maybe the friendship isn't a waste, but let's bring this friendship in a different way that makes sense for those that are involved. How can we then bridge this gap? Because I honestly feel like we can have platonic friendships with men and women. I don't know if people believe that's possible. I truly believe it's possible, but we have to then understand the dynamics of where and what a person's previous experience were to then see if that makes sense in the context of what they can manage and the capacity of now. Not in the future, the capacity of now. So if they can't manage it now, it's not saying that they can't manage it in the future. Let's just give respect to where we are right now and then see how we can grow in the future.
It's all a learning and lessons involved and how we can grow in that together. And if we can.
Yeah. Listen, marriage relationships are a university. You're learning a lot. Right?
Yeah, you are.
You're learning and you're teaching. So
Yeah.
you better bring your pencil and paper to take good notes, is what I
Yeah,
say.
for sure.
If you take, listen, I tell young brothers, take notes, man. Listen to what she's saying. Watch her, observe her, so that you can have the context of what it means to then create a safer environment for her. You can see when she's pulling away, that means safety is not there. You can see when she's pulling closer, that means safety has been provided. And vice versa with men as well. Men shut down because they don't feel safe, because spaces aren't provided for them to feel vulnerable enough to express where they are emotionally, mentally, even physically. Right? A man can be injured and still go through the whole day like nothing's wrong, right? Because that's what we saw our daddies do, our uncles do. But you don't have to do that, man. When you hurt, go ahead, take a seat, man. Take a knee, take a pause, lay down, take a nap. It's gonna be okay. Value yourself, recover, and maintain your temple before you go and manage somebody else's.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure we covered this already in how can someone discern if a relationship aligns with their long-term goals? We've already discussed that. Know yourself. Know what you want.
Yes.
And you can find someone that aligns with that, and you're able to align with what they want and what they need. Correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, because when we talk about realistic, what's realistic to you may not be realistic to everyone.
Yeah.
But it may be realistic to someone, right? And that's where the special sauce comes in, right?
Yeah.
And someone be like, that's me. I understand that, and I value that. I can be a part of that. I can get with that. So let's make this work, And so do you, in understanding that it's not too much that you're asking for. It's not too little that you're asking for. Just be patient enough that God will send that person to you.
Do you, boo?
Do you, boo?
Actionable tips. Oh, yeah, I like this part. Okay, actionable tips.
Yeah. Actionable tips. I think the first one is healing from relationship trauma. Listen, it's a university. Like you're learning. So some of the things we learn are lessons that are hard lessons, right? And the hard lessons are usually when you had the intuitive notion to do something different. You're like, I wish I would have listened, And so those aren't the worst. Those aren't as bad. I don't think any of them are bad per se. What I think they are, I think there are points in our lives where we should be graduating, or we should be taking that as a point of, now that I know, how will I show up in this world differently to not attract the same type of trauma to me? What do I need to then do differently? What do I need to let go of, consciously or subconsciously, that I may not be aware of, that is bringing the same lesson back to me, the same traumatic experience back to me? I'm being re-triggered by this person. Easy example, some people say that you marry your father, or you marry your mother, or you date your mom, or you date your dad, and that person may not have been healthy for you. That parent may not be healthy for you. And so we find ourselves attracting that because we haven't healed from some of those traumatic experiences from our parents. So do that work. The practical thing is do the work. And what is the work? The work is listening to the mind, the heart, by parsing out the noise, right? Take away the voice of your parents. Take away the voice of your sister, your mom, your auntie, and then really ask, what do I really desire? What do I deserve? And listen, we deserve to have life and life more abundant. That means you are deserving of love, of joy, of peace, of understanding, right?
Yes.
Of all these things, you are deserving of that. You have to feel that first before someone can authentically bring that to you. And you can receive that. If you don't feel worthy of it, it's going to be right there in front of you, and it's going to dissipate because you're not storing it correctly, So to heal, we have to listen first, take the small steps, right, by acknowledging it. And this is one of the biggest flex that you can do. Forgive. Forgive yourself first, and then forgive others second. Forgive yourself for being involved in whatever you were involved in that probably wasn't healthy. And forgive that person for them being a part of what created the hurt, the trauma inside of you, so that you won't have to carry that around anymore. You won't have to have that resentment in your heart anymore. You can be at a place of peace where you don't have to then project that hurt onto another relationship. Right? Yeah. And another practical tip is, listen, get outside. Get outside. There's so much healing outside. God's love is everywhere outside. So find a way to then get back to your best self by experiencing God's love. Once you experience the fullness of God's love, it's easier for you to then give it and receive it. So go for a jog, go for a hike, go to the beach, go to the park, go feed the ducks, go feed the fish in the pond. Go do whatever it takes for your mind to detox and feel lighter, to be in a more receptive space of God's love for you.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like life is moving too fast. I know even for myself, when you say that, like, it's like taking time to breathe, basically, time to exhale. And sometimes it feels like life is just moving so fast. You don't have time to do that, especially like, say, for instance, you're a self-employed person, you're working for yourself, you're trying to build something, and life is moving. You don't see the fruits of your labors that has shown up yet, and you've been doing it. And sometimes it just feels like, how can I take the time to go feed ducks? How do I even have time for love? How do I, you want it. How do I have time for these things when I'm trying so hard to reach a certain level, to do certain things? And is it even for you? Is it even for me? How do we come to that conclusion?
Yeah. The verse that said, "Let this mind be in you that is also in Christ Jesus." That's a powerful verse, because it talks about the mind again, right? And when your mind is so fixed on building the external, then that's all you will build when the kingdom of God lives inside. So if you're not storing that first, then what are we building? We're building spaces that we can't even enjoy. Yeah. People make it to the top and have no one to share it with, right? People have all this stuff and then can't, don't have real good friendships, This expression that it gets lonely at the top, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all. You're never lonely. We create the parameters of what relationships we want, right? So if you're on a high horse that's racing down the pathway of success, you have to redefine what success is, right? And it's not to say that the work, the ethics of working, has to then, like you said, you have to choose. You don't have to choose. You can have both. But the balance you need has to be the balance you experience for yourself first, right?
Yeah.
Self-care, right? Self-care. What does that look like? That looks like you acknowledging that you need to care for you. You need caring. You need compassion. You need love. You need affection. You need understanding. And that love, acceptance, understanding starts with you first. So if you're saying you don't have time, how's someone else going to make time for you, right? How are you making time to receive? You're always, if we're always the person that's giving and giving and giving, we have to be still and know that God is God, and who God is a loving, is a provider, is a protector. So we have to be on the receiving end of that by slowing down and being okay with not always making the mark that we didn't create for ourselves. We didn't create these parameters. I don't make it to this place by 43 or by 45. No. Exactly where you are, you have value. Exactly where you are, you should be loved. Exactly where you are, you should be cared for. You should be nurtured. You should be provided for and protected by you first, right? So provide that for you, and then watch as you do those things for you. It will either attract more people that will be co-conspirators in your wellness, and it will deter people that may not understand and value what you're doing for yourself. Meaning, you don't have to do the heavy lifting anymore. God's got you. When somebody that's not supposed to be in your life come around, because you've been so faithful in your paying attention to your own heart, mind, spirit, body, then that person will get close enough to be like, nope, you know what? You're not for me. No, you're not for me. And then those who are for you will easily find you to build community, to build that village, to build that fellowship, to build that family.
I smile because it's always so good talking with you. You have so much to share. It's always so positive. I love it's introspective, and it's just always a good time. So, people, you've gotten some great nuggets here. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. Remember, Healthy relationships start with understanding, trust, and communication, and knowing you.
What an awesome show full of insight and inspiration. Thank you to our guests and listeners. Look forward to hearing us next week on envision-radio.com at 12 noon, right here on Planet Rock.